It's time!
What's kicking, everybody? We are finally back for another episode of Pickin Fights. I'm Keith, joined as always by my good friend Tom. Tom, how are you doing after this hiatus?
Oh man, it was a long hiatus, a little extended. We didn't get back to you for last week's fight night, but we learned a lot about who fought.
Giga
Wow.
Chikadze, Calvin
Giga
Kattar.
Chikadze and Calvin Kattar. Calvin Kattar, how about him coming back after basically a year off following the Max Holloway beatdown, and essentially beats the shit out of Giga Chikadze, similar to how Max Holloway beat the shit out of him. So Calvin Kattar, I think there was a meme that is like, after you fight Max Holloway, the comeback is incredible. So Calvin Kattar, hats off to you. Great. He did a phenomenal fight against Giga Chikadze. Funny, Giga in the hospital was like 9 out of 10 times I win that fight. You see that?
Yeah, I did. It was kind of a crazy thing to say because I guess on that 10th time, he just got his ass beat like bad. So maybe on those 9 other times, Giga Chikadze has a shot. I actually was kind of hot on Giga going into this one, but you're 100% right, man. After people fight Max Holloway, they definitely level up. But Giga Chikadze, he needs to be a little bit more careful with his choice of words, right? Saying he would normally beat up Calvin Kattar and he fucked up. And he was actually looking past Calvin Kattar this past week, making fun of the Korean Zombie for getting a title shot and saying he's going to beat up Volk. It's like, dude, just be focused on one thing. I think everybody was too hot on Giga Chikadze, myself included. And he kind of bought into that hype a little bit too much. And here he is, his face looking like he was stepped on a million times, trampled over by a crowd. So,
dude, he looked like he just got beaten up by Batman.
Oh yeah, he looks like a Joker goon,
Exactly.
Like clobbered for 5 rounds.
Absolutely.
It was but Calvin Kattar though, real quick about that, those elbows he used, he had like
oh my
6
god,
elbows and spinning elbows, dodging. Yeah, it was fucking impressive. So
he threw an elbow combination at one point.
Yeah, it was beautiful.
He threw a legitimate elbow combination at one point, and both of them landed.
Yeah, that was really impressive. And Giga just looked, I mean, I don't know if it was Calvin making Giga look slow, but Giga looked slow. I think it was
I think he was tired. Remember, Calvin Kattar came out. Now, Giga Chikadze slipped. Calvin Kattar used that essentially as a takedown and was on top of him, winning the grappling exchange, in control the entire round, threatening, beating him up. And I think that ultimately led to a very tired second round out of Giga Chikadze. And it was just all downhill from there. Credit to him, in like Tony Ferguson fashion, just refusing to quit, just get the shit beat out of him, keep walking forward, Calvin Kattar-esque. But at the end of the day, I mean, I think that way the first round went ultimately was the linchpin to start Giga Chikadze on a downward spiral in that fight.
Yeah, you're 100% right because, Giga was a kickboxing. I believe he was a world champion at one point, coined that whole Giga kick back there. And, a great way to test a stand-up striker's cardio is by taking him to the ground and making him wrestle with you a little bit. And that's exactly what Calvin Kattar did. And he tired out Giga Chikadze real quick. So, what I do like? Alexander Volkanovski going on the MMA Hour and talking his shit a little bit. He's like, yo, this guy Giga was saying he's ready for it, and he's not ranked high enough to get the title shot and everything. And then he's like, yo, if Calvin did that to him, he said, Calvin's a good guy. But if Calvin did that to him, imagine what I would do to Giga Chikadze. So I don't think Giga is going to be getting that title shot anytime soon. I am excited to see the Korean Zombie. I would have rather had seen Max Holloway versus Volk. For the third time, let Volk get 3 for 3, I guess. But, I guess the Korean Zombie is just the next guy up. I'd like to actually see Calvin go in there after the Korean Zombie, though.
Max Holloway dropped out of the fight so he could fight Conor McGregor, as I previously announced months ago.
Yes, as you broke the news. Speaking of, just one last little news topic, news being broken on Twitter. Chris Daukaus said, Kayla Harrison has been signed by the UFC. I have no sources. I was looking at the tweet thread down below that. Funny guy. Someone asked, well, how do you know if there's no sources? He said, Well, I had a fart that came out funny, and usually that means something. So Chris Dawkins, breaking some news, maybe. Who knows? I don't know if he got like the inside info or if it
Well,
really
did you
was.
see that? Well, Amanda Nunes left American Top Team.
Yeah, to start her own gym. Yep.
Yep. So maybe that could have been part of it. But then apparently, I forget who it was. It might have been Ariel Helwani, but somebody released the fact that the top dog to sign Kayla Harrison is the PFL. And honestly, that makes sense. Beat up people who are nowhere near as good as her and get $1 million for doing it.
Yeah, it's a smart financial decision. And just keep raising that stock until the UFC does start paying fighters more money. And maybe until Amanda Nunes is out of the picture, and then she can come run shit over here. But for the time being, it's definitely the smart decision for Kayla Harrison. So I feel like that's all the news we got to talk about so far. We got to jump into this pretty decent card for UFC 270. It's not the best, but we've got two championship fights. So we'll start off as we always do with our prelim locks. Tom, you got any prelim locks for us you want to talk about?
Yeah, the first prelim lock I got for you is going to be Jake Della Maddalena against Pete Rodriguez. Pete Rodriguez coming in 4-0. This is his first UFC fight. He is a more so a grappler. That's where his strong suit is, not as much on the feet. He does have a really good inside trip that he's been using effectively in his recent fights. The guy, how do you say? I mean, he's not one of those jack guys. He's one of the guys that you look at and you would go, oh, I wouldn't think you would be a UFC fighter. Maybe an Andy Ruiz type, where you go, oh, or a Tyson Fury, right? Where you look at them and you don't expect them to be doing anything really physical, especially not something where the majority of people who are doing it are really well conditioned and most of them have abs. Let's just face it. These guys, they don't have abs. He's taking this on short notice, and he is the shorter fighter. Jake's going to be bigger. He had 2 early losses in his career, and we've seen a lot of people who are able to make it to the UFC following 2 initial quick losses early in their career, that they have this extra degree of toughness about them. And I really like that when you see somebody who can have 2 losses and then go on a 10-fight win streak, get to the UFC, and beat up a lot of former undefeated guys on his way to doing that. That tells me a lot about the mindset behind Jake Della Maddalena. I think his name is fun to say. He is very, very well rounded. He had a full camp coming into this, and he's taken on very solid competition and seemingly gotten better all the way through. So I think he's going to be too much and he's going to overpower Pete Rodriguez. I don't think he's going to fall victim to the inside trip, and if he does, I ultimately think he'll probably be stronger on the ground than Pete Rodriguez is. So I'm going to go with Jake Della Maddalena in the 170-pound division to take this one as a prelim lock.
I like that pick a lot. I've only got one prelim lock for us this week, and I've got Ilia Topuria over Charles Jourdain. There's a few reasons why I'm rolling with Ilia. And, he did just get a win over one of my favorite fighters, Ryan Hall. Now, obviously, that was kind of a fluke win. Ryan Hall broke his hand in that fight and could basically just Iminari roll for, the entire what was it? He was in the first round. It was at the end of the first round that he knocked out Ryan Hall. But he does have some other decent wins, especially like really none of them are coming to decision. He's got a lot of submission victories in his history. He's got a couple of knockouts going for him. So I really like Ilia Topuria here, especially against Charles Jourdain, who, he has a couple of submission losses, and Ilia Topuria is a good Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu practitioner. His most recent loss, Charles Jourdain's coming to Julian Erosa by a Darce choke. Not super impressive. Like Julian Erosa's a decent up and comer, but if you're going to beat a guy like Ilia Topuria, who is currently unbeaten, you can't be losing by a lot of submissions, because I think Ilia Topuria is going to find a way to expose Charles Jourdain's inadequacies in the submission realm. And if not so, then in the stand-up game, because Ilia Topuria does have some very heavy fists as well. The people at Tapology do agree with me. We got 92% of the votes coming in on Ilia Topuria. And, it kind of sucks because he is a heavy favorite, opening lines at -530 for Ilia Topuria. But I'd be curious to see as we get closer what those either TKO or submission lines are looking like, whichever one is a little bit more favorited, probably in like like basically it's going to be KOs plus 100, submission probably plus 200. I'll probably roll with Ilia Topuria by KO TKO.
Yeah, I think I'll go with Ilia Topuria by submission, and I'm thinking that'll probably come in the second round. I think what's going to happen is Charles Jourdain, he's going to come out and he's going to try to, create fireworks, create a really fun, explosive fight. And I think ultimately he might get a little bit tired. He's coming in. I think this might even be on a little bit of shorter notice. So he's going to come in here. He talked about how he was expecting a really, really long list of fighters, or a long line of people waiting to fight Ilia Topuria, and it wasn't there. I think Charles Jourdain is going to, props to him for stepping up and fighting a guy of Topuria's caliber. 11-0 Georgian guy, and I think ultimately this is the Georgian that we should really be getting behind. Maybe not Giga Chikadze. It might be Ilia Topuria. He's almost dominated everybody he's fought. I think he's really, really well-rounded. His strength may be in the stand-up, but then, you see the guy grapple and you think maybe that's where his strength is. He's really, really well-versed in both areas. And I think it's going to present problems for Charles Jourdain to the point where he gets gassed out. Something happens. He slips. He falls. Maybe he throws a punch and ends up he throws a punch. It gets slipped by Topuria. Maybe he takes him down instead of, going for a knockout blow. And then before you know it, you have a tired Charles Jourdain on the ground, submits to a rear naked, or maybe something a little bit more flashy, maybe a head and arm choke or something like that. But I think either way, I see Ilia Topuria taking this one. I think there's a high potential for Charles Jourdain to come out and try to create something explosive in the moment, and that could lead him to being open or gassing out. So similar to what you were saying, either a KO or a submission. I think personally that he might gas out and leave himself open for a submission. So I'm taking Ilia Topuria. We'll see what the line moves to, but I'll probably take it for a submission to make it just a little bit sweeter. But I'll probably just take the win and walk if I'm going to add it to a parlay.
Yeah, that's good. And if Ilia's skills don't get him, then his smell definitely will, because after listening to Ryan Hall and a few other fighters that have fought Ilia Topuria, they said anytime he's around, whether it be face-offs, weigh-ins, or at the fight itself, he smells like he just bathed in a can of Axe body spray. So, yeah, maybe that stink will get Charles Jourdain more than anything.
I hadn't heard that leading up, like while you were like doing the whole, lead up to that. I thought you were going to say he either smells fucking awful or he smells great. And, I guess it was somewhere in the middle. I was expecting him to have like really bad BO or something, like the way you led that up. Like, Charles or Ilia Topuria. Yeah, it's just knowing the guy doesn't shower. Like he's just fucking, smelling like BO all the time. And, maybe that's an advantage. You would think, in a sport where you have to be really up and close, does having gross hair and, arm. I mean, I guess you're sweating either way, so it doesn't matter. But I mean, I don't know how much that is. Maybe you don't brush your teeth for a week before. Start in at the guy. I don't know. It's a thought.
Yeah, that might work out for
one last prelim lock for everybody at home. I have Raoni Barcelos over Victor Henry, and I'll tell you why. Henry, he's a solid regional prospect with pretty good submission ability. He's really only broadcast that or shown that on the regional scene. He has a solid ground game and solid ground and pound. This is his first UFC fight, and going against Raoni Barcelos, I don't have a lot of confidence in him, considering that Raoni Barcelos has had many opportunities to fight big name guys, and the fights just always seemingly fall through, whether it's his fault or another person's fault. It's almost like Tony Ferguson versus Khabib Nurmagomedov, where you just can't get it to happen, except when it's Raoni Barcelos, it's him versus anyone with a name, hence why he's fighting a Victor Henry. So at the end of the day, I think Raoni Barcelos could really be a lot higher in the division and have a much, a much more well-known name in the bantamweight division at 135 pounds. But that being said, I'm going to have to go with Raoni Barcelos. I don't think Victor Henry is going to have anything to really throw Raoni off his game. He's got a more established fight IQ, a longer time in the UFC. He's got a good stand-up game, a great ground game. I think Raoni Barcelos is going to beat Victor Henry fairly easily, probably in the first round, if not in the second round. And following that, I think you're going to see him have another fight made against someone with a name. And, maybe he could fight at the top of the division. I mean, he could fight up there, with the Aldos of the world. So I'm interested to see Raoni Barcelos go out there, get the job done as he should, and then hopefully propel himself a little bit later than he had hoped, but propel him to the top of the division.
I like the pick. I definitely like the pick. So with all of our prelim locks there for the people to tail us or not tail us, let us know in the comments down below right after you like and subscribe to the video. We're going to jump into the main card over here. So just to kick it off, we've got Wellington Turmond versus Roldofo Viera. And personally, I don't think that there's much to say about this one, except for the fact that Wellington Turmond is kind of, he's kind of slipping, right? He beat Sam Alvey, but that's not super impressive. He has a couple of losses recently, losing to Bruno Silva, good guy, Andrew Sanchez, Carl Roberson, and then you got a guy in Roldofo Viera who is a master when it comes to grappling and Brazilian jiu-jitsu. He's just an absolute savage. That is where he, makes his bread and butter.
The Black Belt Hunter is his name, is it not?
Yeah, it is actually. The Black Belt Hunter. That's tough. That's a tough name.
That is a sick name.
Yeah. He is a black belt himself in a few different disciplines, I believe. So, and then you look at his recent fight history. He's got a rear naked choke win over Dustin Stoltzfus, who, isn't terrible. He's 13-2 in the UFC. Arm triangle chokes. He's got basically everything coming by submission. And Wellington Turmond has definitely shown that he's kind of lacking in the grappling realm. He's definitely more of a stand-up guy. And I have a strong feeling that this is going to be a Roldofo Viera win by submission, almost 9 times out of 10. So I'm rolling with Roldofo Viera. It's not even worth just saying just Roldofo Viera. It's going to be Roldofo Viera by submission. What do you think, Tom?
Yeah, I agree with you. Wellington Turmond has been really unimpressive in his most recent fights. He kind of just lays on top, lays, in top control in order to get to a decision win. He's, sort of that wet blanket type. That's how he got his win over Sam Alvey. It's how he's gotten other wins in the past. He's not super exciting, and he's been letting people down recently. He's had, he's on a skid here. And ultimately, I think he's not going to have the ability to stuff Roldofo Viera's takedowns. Also, what a lot of people aren't talking about is Roldofo Viera has developed a sneaky good stand-up game with a really impressive jab that's been able to land that allows him to get inside and take down people. They don't have to just be concerned with being taken down. Like, if you were going to fight Ben Askren, you have to now watch out for a jab that could pop you in the face, stun you, leave you open, and if you're stunned in there, all of these guys are well-rounded enough to be able to put you out. If you're in there stunned and you're not careful and you're not, concerned about a particular discipline. So he's got many subs on his record. Roldofo has. He's better all around. I don't see a way Wellington Turmond takes this one. So yeah, I'm telling you, I'm going Roldofo Viera definitely for the win. Submission is probably not that much better odds because I don't think Roldofo Viera is going to win I don't think it's possible, but I don't think he KOs Wellington Turmond. And I just think he's much more established on the ground. I think he's more of an aggressive fighter that he's not going to want it to go to a decision here.
Yeah. And, Wellington Turmond, like you mentioned, he does like to sit in that top mount or, be on top in the full guard. And Roldofo Viera is not a guy that you can sit like in his full guard because he has so many different submissions that he could pull on you there. So if that is going to be Wellington Turmond's strategy going into this one, he's definitely going to leave, an arm open or a neck or, whatever is going to happen. But, he's too dangerous to try and sit on the ground with Roldofo Viera. So next up, we got Cody Stamann versus Said Nurmogomedov. And I got a question for you because, there's so many Nurmagomedovs and Magomedovs and, Magomed Sharapovs and all these people running around the world out here from Dagestan and the Eastern Bloc. Is Said Nurmagomedov a cousin, a brother? What is he for Habib? I think that you would probably know the answer to this question.
Well, they're all brothers, brother. Let me tell you, brother. Like, he's a brother. We wrestle bears, brother. No one wants to fight me, brother. I tell you, brother. I think he's probably a cousin or in the clan. I don't know for sure. But Khabib's brother doesn't have the last name Nurmagomedov, I don't think, somehow. Okay. So I don't know if the Nurmagomedov, like, it may be similar to, like, China to where the last name doesn't necessarily always follow you. I'm really not sure how it works. Maybe I'm completely making things up, but I would think that we would know that this was Khabib's brother if it was.
Oh yeah, it would definitely be marketed as such. You're 100% right on that. But yeah, I love that. Everybody's his brother. I smash your boy.
Islam Makhachev, I thought was his brother.
I don't think so. I think he's his cousin. I don't know. I mean, there's not enough last names going around there in Dagestan. There's too many guys with the same last name. It's getting a little complicated over there.
There's just so many of them. When there was like 3, you could keep track. Now that there's freaking Dagestanis all over the leaderboards everywhere, you can't even. They're all brothers, brother.
Yeah, and then you got Hasbullah Magomedov. You know,
is that his name, Hasbullah Magomedov?
I believe so. Yeah, it's just getting so complicated.
Hasbullah, brother.
But I'll tell you this about this one. I'm definitely rolling with Saeed Nurmagomedov. And, you know, it doesn't really, well, yes, it has a lot to do with the last name. It has a lot to do with the fact that he's from a place in Russia that I will never be able to pronounce. He's a member of Dag Fighter Gym, you know, where all the Dagestanis are out of. And, you know, I just expect this to be another one where, you know, very similar to Khabib, Saeed Nurmagomedov takes Cody Stamann into deep waters, you know, basically just out wrestles him for 3 rounds, drags him around all over the place, especially because Cody Stamann is coming off of losses to guys like Merab Davishvili, Jimmy Rivera, another good wrestler. You know, those are both unanimous decision losses. He does have a win against Brian Kelleher, so it's not, you know, like he is decent at wrestling. Because Brian Kelleher, we've seen he really just abuses guys on the ground, you know, and he's very good at maintaining a good position on top of people. But you know, another loss on Cody Stamann's record is to Aljamain Sterling by submission, and so those are all, you know, decently notable up and coming names, or you know, current paper champions that Cody Stamann has lost to. And when you have a Dagestani going out there against a guy who has losses by decision because of wrestling, well, then you really have to roll with the Dagestani name Nurmagomedov. So I'm taking Saeed Nurmagomedov in this fight. What do you think?
Yeah, Saeed, he's a very, very, very good grappler, as everyone out coming out of Dagestan he is, but he also has a really good stand-up game too. He's shown his typical Dagestani, you know, control and submission ability. And, you know, Cody was out-grappled by Merab Davishvili. I mean, he did well. I think he may have taken one of the rounds, but, you know, still was out-grappled by Merab. And I'm not confident that Merab would out-grapple Saeed. I think it would probably be a pretty close, probably a pretty good matchup. That being said, I just don't see Stamann being able to stuff any takedowns. I don't see him being able to beat Saeed Nurmagomedov on the feet. Coming off 2 losses is probably one of the last times we see Cody Stamann in the UFC, unfortunately. Not a bad fighter, but unfortunately just, you know, got had a little bit too much of a weakness and got matched up with guys where that's their strength. So, you know, it's unfortunately how she goes, and I think Saeed takes this one.
Well, we're in concurrence here. If you had to pick a method, what would you pick? I'm personally going with decision.
I can see this one potentially being a KO TKO. Saeed Nurmagomedov is, you know, shown that he has, you know, that spinning back kick ability. I think he's gotten a finish with it at least once, maybe 2 times. Like I said, he is an underrated stand-up fighter. Cody Stamann is, believe it or not, a wrestler by trade. You know, not the best of it. He clearly, you know, he loses by decision when grappling is, you know, the predominant factor. He has a solid stand-up game, but I think Saeed's better in both areas. I think Cody is going to be more concerned about the wrestling, and I think that ultimately could leave him open. He's got, you know, kind of a short body. I think that could leave him open for a potential body shot or a spinning kick. So I'm going to go against the grain and say a KO TKO for Saeed.
Wow. All right. That's a bold pick. I like it. So next up, we've got Michel Pereira versus Andre Fiahlo. I think, you know, consensus here is probably going to be very similar, where we roll with Michel Pereira. But I'm curious, who are you going with in this one, Tom?
Yeah, Michel Pereira, I'm going with him over Andre Fiahlo. But he's very good, Pereira is. He's got power, but he's also got really, really good fight IQ, and he's very precise with his shots. He's shown a really, really strong gas tank and ability to understand what's going on in the fight, what he needs to do, and how he can compromise his opponent in the best way possible. He handled Chaos Williams very well. And Andre is more of a KO guy who's getting his shot here. I think he's going to go out there and try and stop Michel Pereira in the first few minutes. So not even necessarily in the first round. I think he's going to try in the first maybe 90 seconds, maybe a little bit similar to our main event, where he's going to come out, he's going to try and make something happen early and ultimately gas himself out. And I think that's where Pereira gets to take control in the end of the first round into the second round. I think, a couple people were talking about Michel Pereira potentially going for a flying knee and getting a win there. He's done it in the past. He's got a very, very good flying knee with a lot of power behind it. But I think Michel Pereira gets it done. I think it's going to be a KO. I can't say if it's going to be in the first round. Maybe I'll give Andre Fiahlo a benefit of the doubt, say he makes it to the second round because, he's probably knows that Michel is expecting him to come out aggressively. So he's going to probably try to taper it. But when you're a guy that has power in his hands and that knows he has power in his hands and knows that that's his path to victory, I think being in there, being at the top of the card. I mean, listen, you're in the main event. The fight after you is a championship fight. It may get to him a little bit. And ultimately he starts laying on that power a little bit later in the round instead of coming out too super aggressive. But yeah, I'm going to go with Michel Pereira taking the win here. I'm not sure if it's Michel, Michael. Apologies. We'll listen to what John Anik has to say and edit accordingly.
Yeah, they get to sit in a room with those guys. They have a meeting with the media where they get to tell them, here's what my name is, because there are some pretty unique names. Here's what's going on in my life. And that's why John Anik is able to come up with these crazy things like, oh, here's so-and-so. And his wife actually just divorced him and got custody of his kids. And that's what he's fighting for tonight. This fight is brought to you by P3 Protein. So, that's why John Anik has like all the important tidbits and, the proper pronunciation of everybody's names. So-and-so
is coming in fighting for his relationship with his children. And this fight is brought to you by Modelo, brewed with a fighting spirit, just like so-and-so who's fighting for his children.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, that's exactly how that was a spot on John Anik impersonation, actually. But I'm rolling with, I believe it's Michel Pereira, not Michelle, but Michel Pereira. And, I agree with everything that you said. I just want to say I'm really looking forward to this fight. It's going to be a very entertaining one. You go back and you look at his fight against Nico Price back in July. I believe that was on the McGregor card. That was one of the penultimate fights leading up to the McGregor-Poirier fight. And it was so entertaining. Pereira knows how to put on a show, doing backflips onto Nico Price's face and picking him up at the end of the fight. And, he's an all-around good sport. He's a guy that knows he's out there to put on a show. He's truly a modern-day gladiator. So I'm really looking forward to this one. And I'm going with Michel Pereira by knockout. So next up, we've got the UFC Flyweight Championship. We've got the Lego boy Brendon Moreno versus Deiveson Figureido, the God of War. I know that, Brendon Moreno's real nickname is not the Lego boy, but that's what I think of.
Could be.
Him. Yeah, it definitely could be. I mean, I think it's time to ditch the assassin baby. It's getting kind of old, man. He's like 29 years old. So how much longer can you be the assassin baby for?
Yeah, he'll level up to the Lego boy.
Yeah, that would be cool. So there's one thing I want to note before I start breaking this down is that there were two people who I have seen get their haircut on UFC Embedded this week so far. And one of them is Deiveson Figureido. He gets his hair cut, he gets it bleached, he gets a red stripe in it because he's the God of War. Or in Spanish, Deus de Guerrera. I'm rolling with Brendon Moreno, and it's not just because of that. I just think that, Father Time comes for everybody eventually, and I think that Deiveson Figueiredo, while he's not totally out of the sport, I just don't think that this belt is his to hold anymore. I think that this belt remains in Mexico. He was super cocky going in the last one. He's still super cocky going into this one. And I think that Brendon Moreno is just an all-around better fighter. He's got a better stand-up game, a better wrestling game, and Figueiredo is rolling in with a curse on his back. So I'm going with Brendon Moreno on this one. Now I'm a little bit torn on the method of victory, but at minus 180, just a slight favorite. I'm cool with rolling with Brendon Moreno money line straight up. What do you think about this one, Tom?
Yeah, this one kind of feels like it almost feels like Tyson Fury versus Deontay Wilder, although these guys weigh 125 pounds. I also noticed it's very interesting that we go flyweight, lightest men's weight in the UFC. Next fight, immediate heaviest weight, and potentially one of the heaviest heavyweight fights we've ever had. And both guys have abs, so it's incredible. Back to Brendon Moreno, Deiveson Figureido. Deiveson won the first fight, right? If you don't take the point away, he wins that fight. Second fight, he does lose. But everyone has a bad night. Now, it's hard to tell how fast Brendon Moreno is improving from fight 1 to fight 2. He showed a very, very adept ground game, and he showed the ability to beat Deiveson on the feet as well. However, Deiveson was winning the better of some of those exchanges and ultimately got submitted at, in the second round? So I'm not willing to say that Deiveson Figueiredo is washed up. He's on his way out yet. I think that he more likely had a bad night. Again, the second Brendon Moreno fight, probably won the first fight despite having stomach issues the night before. And I think he's got a very good shot at winning this fight here. There was something weird to me in the last fight, how immediately after tapping out, Deiveson Figueiredo got up and he's basically walking around the octagon with Brendon Moreno on his shoulders. There was something weird about that. And then afterward, he started kind of talking shit. I didn't understand the methodology going into that. I understand all of those events kind of in succession isn't spelling, this fighter is going to have a ton of confidence. But I'm not reading into the blonde hair thing because, Charles Oliveira does the blonde hair thing.
Oh, real quick. It has nothing to do with the blonde hair. That's just his look. And
he does the haircut too.
That's his curse. Yeah. It's the UFC embedded haircut, hairstyling.
I know, but there's been guys in the past who have been able to beat that curse.
Very true.
He does it all the time. He did it after the first Brendon Moreno one. And yeah, it was technically a tie, but he still retained his belt. So that curse is not hard and fast. It can be broken. I feel like Brendon Moreno wins because I feel like that's how this story goes, especially after Tyson Fury, Deontay Wilder. But I'm just thinking it's going to be Deiveson Figueiredo, and I'm going to go with Figgy.
Yeah, I'm very much a storyline guy, as anybody who's been watching us for a while knows, and that's definitely part of the reason why I'm going with Moreno. I think a big thing that speaks to me as well, you mentioned the confidence thing and picking him up on his shoulders and then talking all this shit. Oh, enjoy the belt now. It's coming back to Brazil. Brendon Moreno has all the confidence in the world. If you look back, you remember right after Rose Namajunas said, I'm the best. Brendon Moreno was saying the exact same thing, and Rose just retained her belt against Zhang Weili. And I have a feeling that Brendon Moreno rolling in with all this confidence, this swagger, listen, this guy, he is one of the most rock solid, confident guys in the UFC. Like, you see the way that he acts, he does not act like a stereotypical fighter, trying to be tough all the time. He's sitting with the ring girls, cross-legged, doing funny poses, playing with Legos. So I think when it comes all down to it, he's just so confident and so secure in who he is that his mindset can't be shaken going into this one. And I think that Deiveson Figueiredo has everything to fight for. And I feel like for Brendon Moreno, he's just like, it's all out there already. Everybody knows, what's on the line for him. And I think that mindset's going to play into this heavily too. I think the storyline is big, but I think more than anything, there's a lot of pressure on Deiveson Figueiredo. And I don't think that Brendon Moreno feels like there's any pressure on him whatsoever. So I'm definitely rolling with Brendon Moreno still. Don't know how it's going to happen. It could happen any of three ways. But I really like Brendon Moreno in this one. So
yeah, like I said, I could see that happening. You know, I feel like that's how the story plays out. But I don't know. I don't even know if Brandon Moreno or if Deiveson Figueiredo is an underdog at this point. But I don't know. I don't know why I'm inclined to take him here. I mean, listen, he is a good. He's a great fighter. He's probably number 2 in that division right now. Still, um, he's got good stand-up game. He's got a really, really good ground game. Is he going to be able to choke out Brendon Moreno? I don't know if I see that happening. Is he going to win a decision? He has in the past. I don't know. I don't know. You know what? I'm going to go with Deiveson Figueiredo by. Well, he would have to really beat him by this. See, if he's going to win a decision, you'd have to really beat him by decision because you have the whole got to beat the champ. You got to do it clearly. I don't know why. Every sign points toward Brendon Moreno, but something's telling me that Figgy's going to, I don't know. It's probably going to look pretty stupid in a couple of days, but.
well, I'll tell you this. If it does pan out for you where Deiveson Figueiredo is the winner at the end of this one, you're definitely on the right side of history in that case. And a lot of people will have been incorrect because the lines are moving. Like I just said a few seconds ago, Brandon Moreno opening line -108. Those lines are moving heavily. He's now sitting at about -178, courtesy of FanDuel, and Deiveson Figueiredo is entering a more of an underdog territory. He's sitting around about +150 at the moment. So if that's really how you feel, I'd almost even wait until the day of the fight to to stake your claim on some Deiveson Figueiredo money very responsibly. But
Yeah, I'll wait to see where the sharps come in.
oh,
And
the sharps are in there. They're in there. I've been watching some of these lines move for a little bit, and these sharps are definitely touching some stuff heavily. So, speaking of some lines moving pretty heavily over the past few days, we've got the main event for UFC 270, and that is the heavyweight belt. We've got Cyril Gane looking to unify the belt against Francis Ngannou. Cyril Gane being the interim champ, Francis Ngannou, the current heavyweight champion, taking the belt from Stipe back last, I believe it was March, knocking one of the GOATs flat out. So yeah, I'll let you kick this one off. I've been starting off all these. I'm very curious to hear your standpoint on this fight.
it's basically going to go like this. Does Cyril Gane make it out of the first 3 minutes? And then does Francis have power beyond the first round? Does Francis have the ability in his vast training of mixed martial arts? Does he have the ability through wanting to box Tyson Fury? Does he have the ability to win a 5-round decision? Does he have the ability to retain power in rounds 2, 3, 4, and 5? And that's really what we're going to find out here. Can Cyril avoid this new Francis Ngannou? Can he avoid him long enough to tire him out? And that's really what we're going to see. I think Cyril Gane, I mean, just to bring up that training footage, everybody likes to look at the training footage. Francis Ngannou's style doesn't really lend itself well to training footage. Was he going to beat the shit out of everyone he trains with? Like, no. But he only needs one punch to get there.
Right. They still have to see each other at work the next day.
Right. Cyril Gane can touch him up all he wants, light, 30% power, and look like he's dominating, when in actuality, one of the punches that maybe Francis got through was actually a KO blow that would have sent Cyril Gane's ear through his other ear. So, that's not a really good metric for me. Also, both of the guys have probably progressed so much significantly beyond there. And then the whole used to be training partners storyline, they're really playing that one up, because I think these guys, they just were members of like a gym for a period of time and then we're at the same gym. Not as much training partners. It's not like it's a Colby George situation, which that fight is going to be great. I think Cyril Gane's going to be really smart in this fight. I think he knows that Francis Ngannou is going to come after him aggressively in the first round. And maybe I wonder if Francis comes out with a little bit more of a measured attack style, because Cyril Gane is going to be expecting him to come out more aggressively. So Francis is maybe going to be like, no, hold on. I'm going to show everyone that I'm going to knock you out in the second round, motherfucker. So who knows what's going to happen? I mean, Francis has generally come out with the same game plan for the last few fights now. So why would you change that up if you don't have to? It'd be interesting to see if Cyril Gane wants to try and take him to the ground. I mean, Stipe tried and tried unsuccessfully. Is Cyril Gane better than Stipe Miocic? That's an interesting question. It's a much different fight, right? It's a much more intelligent fight than this current one. You asked me a long time ago, I would have said I think Cyril Gane gets it done, no question. Now I'm definitely a little bit more concerned that Francis is going to come out there and be able to knock him out. But ultimately, I'm going to go with my gut. I'm not going to renege on an earlier feeling. I thought Brendon Moreno was going to win the whole way. I reneged, and I'm going with Deiveson. So I'm gonna split. I don't think I'll be right on both of these picks. I'll be right one and I'll be wrong one. I'm going to go Cyril Gane is going to win. I think there's a lot of instances where he's maybe just getting out of the way. I think he's ultimately going to be more of a smart fighter. I think he has probably done a lot of research on Francis Ngannou. He knows exactly what he's going to come out as, and maybe that is why Francis may decide to come out a little bit more measured and composed, to throw Cyril off his game and come out with a completely different game plan. But then you think of it from Francis' perspective, why change what got me here?
Right.
So I think ultimately Francis, he's going to lend himself to what he knows best and what has given him the most amount of success. And I think ultimately Cyril's expecting that. And Cyril's had the ability to stay on the outside for a long, in a lot of different fights. I mean, he was able to stay away from Derek Lewis' power a number of times. Here's the other thing that Israel Adesanya said about fighting Jan Blachowicz. He said, at that level, power's power. Everyone has power. If they touch you, you go out. It doesn't matter if you have the power of a F-150, of a tractor trailer, or a jetliner. If power of 7 and above knocks you out, it doesn't matter if you're at 20. If 7 does the job. And if Cyril Gane was able to avoid Derek Lewis, who has legitimate KO knockout power, not as much as Francis, but don't forget, he is the UFC's all-time heavy knockout artist, record holder, whatever, put that together. I'm going to go Cyril Gane. He's able to get past Derek Lewis. He's shown that he has good fight IQ. I think he'll be able to avoid Francis Ngannou long enough to eventually tire him out, piece him up. And I think you're probably most likely finished here is a submission.
Yo, that was some of the best fucking logic I've heard this week, Tom. Fucking kudos to you, man. I love that. The whole point about power is power. Yes, you're 100% correct, because Cyril Gane did get in there close with Derek Lewis a lot, like up against the cage, and Derek Lewis had like some of those crazy uppercuts, check hooks that really would have put any other man to sleep. And yet Cyril Gane was, just doing his dance. He has some of the best footwork in the heavyweight division, jumping in
the UFC.
Yeah, in the UFC, and it's crazy because he's one of the heaviest men in the UFC. He jumps in and out, will hit a guy with leg kick, pop back out real quick. It's stuff that you don't see heavyweights do, and he was doing that to Derek Lewis up until he knocked him out up in, I think, the 3rd round. And with that crazy elbow combination that he had, which was just absolutely crisp, gorgeous, any word that you could describe it. You could basically describe the best looking woman that you've ever seen in your entire life the same way that you could describe that Cyril Gane elbow combination that he had against Derek Lewis. I'm 100% with you on this. And you know what? I called the last pay-per-view main event perfectly to a T. I said that Charles Oliveira was going to win by some form of choke in the 3rd round. And you know what? I'm with you on the submission victory by Cyril Gane. I think that in the 4th round, he's going to win by an armbar, because Francis, we have to look back. He does have losses. He lost to Stipe the first time around, and that was because while Stipe is a kickboxer at his core, he also is a very proficient wrestler for a heavyweight. You got to keep in mind a lot of these heavyweight fights stay standing up because they just have so much power and it doesn't even have time to get to the ground. I think that Cyril Gane is just so much more complete of a fighter, and like you said, maybe Francis goes in there crazy, wild, powerful, tires himself out early. Cyril Gane is able to dominate on the ground, tire him out some more, expend that gas tank of Francis Ngannou, and then eventually by the 3rd round, I think that he's going to wrench an arm out. So I'm saying it again, Cyril Gane by armbar in the 4th round. I think that's how it's going to, either 3rd or 4th. okay, we'll make this clip like kind of longer in case it does go in the third, then we can put it up on TikTok and Instagram Reels and all that. But I'm really feeling Cyril Gane by a submission victory. If you look back on his fight history, he has wins by heel hook, arm triangle choke. Those are his 2 debut fights in the UFC. And, I just think he's going to go back to the well, use that great Brazilian jiu-jitsu that he has. He moves so much better, not only on his feet, but on the ground than any other heavyweight in this division. And I've been calling it for months, ever since I saw Cyril Gane fight. Who was it? Tall, white guy.
Volkov.
Volkov, yes. Since I saw him fight Volkov, there was something in that fight. I think it might have been the intelligence more than anything that made me say, Cyril Gane is going to take this belt and he's going to hold it for a very, very long time. And I still have that same sentiment today. So I'm going.
Here's the other thing that we have to remember. Stipe wasn't able to wrestle Francis in the second time, but Stipe also came into that fight. I think he weighed something like 237 pounds or 240 pounds, right? And he probably didn't cut to get there. He's probably coming in, that's what he weighs. Yeah. Well, against Francis Ngannou, who cuts to get to 265, Cyril Gane, who's going to weigh in probably somewhere in the range of 255, 260. I mean, these guys are big boys, and there's not as much of a size discrepancy here between Francis and Cyril. So I don't think Francis will have as easy of a time stuffing a potential takedown or, keeping Cyril Gane off him. These guys are very, very similar in stature and build. I think Francis has more KO power than Cyril does, but I think Cyril has more intelligence, and he's been in there with guys with KO power. Francis hasn't got in there with a guy like Cyril Gane because there aren't any guys like Cyril Gane. You can't be 6'3", 6'4", 260 pounds, jacked with abs, and dance like a middleweight. You can't do it. The fact that he can is miraculous, and it's going to be amazing if Francis knocks that off because that's the best we have. That is the best fighter we have at 260 pounds when you talk about pure fighting ability and intangibles and intelligence and the full package. He's the full package, and we're going to find out if power beats power. Listen, Conor McGregor, precision beats power and timing beats speed. Francis just has power. Does Cyril Gane have enough precision and timing to beat him? I think he might.
Yeah, I'll tell you this. There's one thing that makes me feel good going into this one. I'm sorry, one thing that makes me feel worried going into this one, and 2 things that make me feel good. The one thing that makes me feel worried is that, while Jairzinho Rosenstrike, he's not on the level of Cyril Gane. He is somewhat similar in his stand-up style. He doesn't bounce around the same way. And Cyril does stay on the outside a lot more. But when you go back and you look at that Francis knockout of Biggie Boy, where he's just absolutely charging at him, windmill arms and flying, and the 2 of them throwing strikes. If there's a similar situation, I think that Cyril Gane could be the victim of a knockout. Now, I don't think that Cyril Gane is stupid enough to put himself into that position. I think that Biggie Boy doesn't have the intelligence of Cyril Gane whatsoever. And then 2 things that do make me feel very good are the fact that I mentioned this before, people getting haircuts on UFC Embedded, someone who I haven't seen get a haircut before, who I have seen this week, literally today as we're filming it, is Francis Ngannou. And if you're a believer in curses like I am, I'm a very superstitious guy when it comes to betting, I'm definitely betting against Francis after seeing that. One of the only guys that I've seen get a haircut and still win is Kamaru Usman, one of his African brothers. And I just don't think that Francis is on the same par as Kamaru. He's not as complete. And then I'll say this, another thing that has me feeling good about Cyril Gane is the way that Francis is talking this week. He's been going on a whole bunch of different tangents while he's been on interviews and everything. You see one interview and he's telling somebody, well, it doesn't matter if I've lost because, this could be the end of my time with the UFC. And I think there is that bit of mentality where he wants out of the UFC and into boxing so bad that, and there is a clause, I believe, in some champion contracts where if you win, you automatically get extended for your next fight after. So there is that bit of Francis Ngannou that he may want to lose subconsciously so that he could ditch the UFC, go over to boxing or go over to another promotion where he gets paid more. But then you see him and immediately an hour later, he's flip-flopping and he's like, oh, well, I knocked out Cyril Gane with a head kick when we were training together. And nobody's seen that footage. I just think that there's too much going on with Francis Ngannou. He's all up in his head right now. Cyril Gane is one of the most confident fighters I've ever seen. We speak about confidence versus a guy that's all over the place. Cyril Gane,
and he's quiet. He's quiet too.
And he's a nice guy. And you want to talk about storylines? Cyril Gane, we have so many champions that are good guys, good, solid guys. Typically that's how it rolls, right? Is the champion is not only the guy that's the best, but he's the guy with the best mentality. He's not super aggressive because that aggression will make him lose fights. And I think that Cyril Gane is up there with the rest of them, the best of them, like Charles Oliveira, where, Charles Oliveira, Volkanovski, Rose Namajunas, all these great champions, Brendon Moreno, they're just so level-headed. They're such good people, and they're just devoted to their
Nunes, Valentina Shevchenko.
Yeah, I mean, I would say Amanda,
Izzy Adesanya.
Yeah, Amanda got a little bit ahead of herself.
Glover Teixeira.
Yeah, Glover. It's all these people they're good people too that are just devoted to their craft. They don't let their aggression or their mindset get the best of them. And I think that there's going to be a bit of a mindset difficulty for Francis going into this one. So
notice how we named every single division inside of the UFC with the exception of one division. What division was that?
The welterweight division.
Okay, two divisions. Yeah, you're right. We didn't say welterweight. You're right. Kamaru Usman is measured and whatever too for the most part.
Kind of a dick.
Yeah, he is kind of a dick. Speaking of kind of a dick, Aljamain Sterling in the bantamweight division was the other one.
Oh shit! I didn't even think of that. That's so funny. Holy shit! Wow. Yeah, he's Kamaru Usman can be a little cocky sometimes. Fair enough. Aljamain Sterling is the most dick-headed.
He's a douche
here for no reason. It's crazy. So I'm with you on that.
But Peter Yan would be pretty measured. Peter Yan has been pretty cool, low-key, even keel until Aljamain Sterling was a straight-up douchebag. And he's like, all right, well, hold on. Enough's enough.
So that's exactly what I'm getting at is there's a championship mindset. It's very Tom Brady-esque, very Michael Jordan-esque.
Francis used to be like that. Francis used to be very humble, whatever. And now, since he's won the title and defended it, his head has gotten gigantic, and you could see his confidence is through the roof, and it's not necessarily a good confidence. So yeah. I'm with you. I think it's time for a changing of the guard. He's just usually when champions get over conceited like that, bad things happen.
Especially when they haven't even defended the belt one time. They held out for so many different reasons for a year. You know what? Fuck you, Francis. I hope Cyril Gane beats your ass, and if you beat his ass.
That's right. He hasn't defended it.
Yeah. He just won it. That was it. And then he held out for almost 10 months. So, I really hope Cyril Gane wins this one. This isn't even just like my wallet standpoint. I can really say that now because it's illegal in New York now to bet on sports, but it's also because of a fan perspective. I'm a huge Cyril Gane fan. I've been hot on him since the first time we saw him fight. And or since his name really started going out there, it's like, okay, this guy is legit. And I even put in the hours to get the Cyril Gane logo on UFC 4. So dude, big Cyril Gane fan over here. Maybe I'm a little biased, but like I said, Cyril Gane submission, 3rd or 4th round, armbar, most likely way to happen. That's what I think. Or maybe he pulls it out by decision, Maybe he just, I don't think so.
Maybe.
Fights usually don't go that way, especially 5-rounders. But I could definitely
5 rounds feels like a long time for Francis Ngannou.
Yeah, it's a 25-minute fight. I could definitely see Cyril Gane just bopping in and out and just getting those point numbers up, And, dude, it could be 3rd, 4th, 5th round. All of a sudden he's winning like fucking 10-8s and 10-7 by the 5th round. So, you have to be determined, but I'm glad that we're both feeling Cyril Gane.
Well, we'll see what Francis's chin is like.
Right, because he hasn't really been tested. You know, he
I
hasn't,
feel like he's probably been hit very infrequently.
yeah, nobody's really popped him on the chin yet. So we'll see. Maybe Cyril Gane does win it by knockout, but I do want to say this real quick because I'll tell you what, when I talk to people in my personal life and they're like, "Oh, who you feeling for this one?" I've said Cyril Gane, but wait until the lines move because a lot of people in the public don't really know Cyril Gane and they're going to start to bet Francis Ngannou. And the lines are going to shift in Cyril Gane's favor, you know, or bettors on Cyril Gane's favor. But I'm seeing this now. The lines are actually moving with the sharps, with the public, where Cyril Gane is becoming more of a favorite over time. And the people on Tapology actually have him 61% winning over Francis's 39. Now, out of Francis's 39% of votes, 91% are coming in by KO, TKO. So we all are aware that
Surprised that's not higher.
Yeah, I know. You would think it would be 100%, but yeah, the other percent is on decision, which makes no sense because the only way that Francis wins this one
Does sub make more sense? Well, he does have 4 submissions.
Yeah, that's
Francis
great.
does.
Listen, we'll cut this here. This video is getting long. I'm going to say this. I'm taking Cyril Gane, 3rd, 4th round submission. I think that you agree with me on that. So,
yeah, I'm doing Cyril Gane. I am doing Deiveson Figureido. I am doing Michel Pereira. I am doing Said Nurmogomedov. I am doing Rodolfo Viera. I am doing Ilia Topuria as a lock, Ione Barcelos as a lock, and Jake Della Mandalena as a lock.
I'll roll with you on your 2 locks that I didn't have, Barcelos and Mandalena. But I'm also taking Ilia Topuria. That is my number 1 prelim lock by either knockout or submission. Might stay both. Rodolfo Vieira, Said Nurmagomedov, Michel Pereira. The only one that we disagree on is I'm taking Brendon Moreno over Deiveson Figureido, and we're both taking Cyril Gane over Francis Ngannou. So I just want to say thank you, Tom, for coming back. You know, I mean, we had about a month off from the UFC, no events for a while there, but you know, it's so great to see your face over this Zoom machine again. Guys at home, appreciate you for watching, sticking around this long. Make sure that you like, you subscribe, and comment down below. Guys, my hair is balding, right? You can kind of see it back here, but the hairline in the front's going. So I need some advice out there. If you think that I should shave my head, let me know in the comments down below. If I get 5 or more comments saying I should shave my head, I'll consider it. So thank you again, everybody. Really appreciate y'all. Have a great night. Like, subscribe, comment. Goodbye.